Is it true that you were abducted by aliens? That they pulled you through the ceiling of your room?
The doctors keep telling me it was sleep paralysis. That's what they write in their little notepads while nodding sympathetically. Sleep paralysis, night terrors, perhaps a touch of psychosis brought on by stress and isolation. They prescribe pills that I flush down the toilet because I know what I saw. I know what happened to me. But before I tell you what really happened to me, please support this channel by liking, subscribing, and commenting where you're watching from. Your support helps bring the truth to the world. We cannot stay silent. 48 years I've lived in this world, 22 of them teaching literature to high schoolers in rural Pennsylvania. I'm Eleanor Weaver, Ellie to my few friends, and until 4 months ago my life was beautifully ordinary. Grading papers on Sunday afternoons, tending to my vegetable garden in the summer, reading by the fireplace during our harsh winters. I live alone in my grandmother's old farmhouse, about a mile down an unpaved road from my nearest neighbor. I've always treasured the quiet. It was a Tuesday night in October when things first changed. Nothing dramatic, just my bedroom light flickering while I was reading Jane Austen for perhaps the 100th time. The bulb buzzed, dimmed, then brightened again. I remember marking my page, setting the book down and climbing out of bed to check the lamp. The metal base felt unusually warm, almost hot to touch. When I tried to unscrew the bulb, a static shock jumped from the lamp to my fingertips, sharp and strong enough to make me gasp. That night, I dreamt of humming, not singing, not music, just a steady, penetrating hum that seemed to vibrate through my skull rather than enter through my ears. I woke at exactly 3:17 a.m., drenched in sweat despite the autumn chill. My digital alarm clock was flashing 3:33, though my phone showed the correct time. I blamed old wiring, the aging electrical system my grandmother had installed decades ago. I made a mental note to call an electrician and went back to sleep. The next morning, I noticed 3 small bruises on my inner wrist perfectly aligned in a straight line. I couldn't remember bumping into anything. Maybe I had gripped my own wrist in my sleep. I dismissed it, applied concealer before heading to school, and spent the day teaching Hamlet to disinterested sophomores. For the next 2 weeks, the electrical oddities continued. My microwave would reset itself. The television would turn on in the middle of the night. My phone would be fully charged when I went to bed and completely dead by morning. I finally called an electrician who spent an afternoon checking everything and found nothing wrong. He suggested it might be power surges from the nearby electrical substation and recommended a whole house surge protector. I had it installed the following week. It didn't help. The dreams intensified, always beginning with that humming, gradually joined by a pressure in my chest, as though something was sitting on me. I began waking at 3:17 every single night, my heart racing, certain there was someone in the room with me. But whenever I turned on the light, I was alone. I started sleeping poorly. My colleagues noticed. The principal asked if everything was all right after I dozed off during a staff meeting. I blamed insomnia, said I was going through a rough patch. In reality, I was becoming afraid to go to sleep in my own home. Then came that night in November, the night that changed everything. I'd finally broken down and taken a sleeping pill, desperate for one night of uninterrupted rest. I remember checking that all the doors were locked, all the windows secured. I even looked under the bed, feeling foolish like a child afraid of monsters. I was asleep within 20 minutes of my head hitting the pillow. The humming woke me, not gradually but suddenly, as though someone had flipped a switch inside my head. My eyes snapped open to darkness, but I couldn't move, not even a finger. My body felt impossibly heavy, pinned to the mattress by an invisible weight. I tried to scream, but my throat wouldn't work. All I could manage was shallow, rapid breathing. That's when I noticed the light. Not from the windows or the doorway, but from the ceiling. A dim bluish glow that seemed to be seeping through the plaster above my bed. As I watched, paralyzed, the light intensified, casting strange, shifting shadows across my bedroom walls. The pressure on my chest increased until I could barely breathe. The humming grew louder, joined now by a high-pitched whine that made my teeth ache. The air in the room felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. Then I felt it, the first touch, something cold and dry against my ankle. Not a hand, not anything I could readily identify, but a sensation of being gently but firmly grasped. My body began to rise from the bed, still rigid, still paralyzed. Inch by inch, I was being lifted toward the glowing ceiling. I wanted to struggle, to scream, to do anything, but I couldn't. All I could do was watch as the ceiling grew closer, the blue light so bright now it was almost white. I remember thinking, with strange clarity, this can't be happening. This isn't real. I'm having a stroke or an aneurysm. This is what death feels like. The last thing I remember is the ceiling, not breaking, not cracking, but somehow becoming insubstantial, like fog. As I passed through it, I felt a coldness unlike anything I've ever experienced. Not the cold of ice or winter, but something deeper, something that seemed to freeze not just my skin, but something fundamental inside me. Then nothing. Absolute darkness. I woke up naked in a field over 17 miles from my house, with the morning sun burning my skin and a farmer staring down at me in shock. There were no marks on my body except for 3 new bruises on my other wrist, perfectly aligned like the first set. I had no memory of how I'd gotten there, no explanation for the missing hours. The police were called. They suspected drugs, alcohol, a psychological break. They asked about medications, about stress at work, about my mental health history. When I tried to explain about the light, the humming, the ceiling, their expressions changed from concern to pity. One officer exchanged a glance with his partner that I've seen too many times in my life, the look that says, "Poor woman, she's not well." They drove me home. My house was exactly as I'd left it. Doors locked, windows secured. My pajamas were folded neatly on my bed. The ceiling was intact with no sign of the light I'd seen. The only evidence that something had happened was my absence from that locked house and the new bruises on my wrist. I called in sick to school that day, and the next, I sat in my living room, afraid to enter my bedroom, trying to make sense of what had happened. Had I sleepwalked 17 miles? Had I suffered some kind of fugue state? Was I losing my mind? The rational part of me, the English teacher who dealt in facts and analysis, wanted a logical explanation. But there was another part, a growing part, that knew what I'd experienced wasn't a dream or a hallucination. It was real, and I was terrified it would happen again. That fear has been my constant companion for the past 4 months, because despite what the doctors say, despite the sleeping pills and the therapy sessions and the concerned looks from my colleagues, I know something happened to me that night, something that science can't explain, something that continues to haunt every moment of my life. And the worst part is that sometimes late at night, I still hear that humming, growing louder, coming closer, waiting for me to fall asleep. People look at you differently once you've been found naked in a field with no explanation. The whispers follow me through the hallways at school. The principal suggested I take a leave of absence, for my health, he said, but his eyes told a different story. Parents don't want their children taught by someone unstable. I returned to teaching after a week. I needed the routine. Standing in front of my classroom discussing the scarlet letter felt like clutching at a life raft. But I could feel their eyes on me, my students, my colleagues. The story had spread. Miss Weaver had some kind of episode. Miss Weaver was found confused and naked miles from home. The worst part is not knowing what happened during those missing hours. The police report lists the time I was found at 6:23 a.m. The last time I remember seeing was 3:17 a.m. on my bedroom clock. 3 hours and 6 minutes gone. I've developed a system since that night. Every evening, I place small objects in specific positions throughout the house. A pencil balanced on a book, a glass of water filled to a precise level, a string across my bedroom doorway. I take photographs of these setups. In the morning, I check everything. So far, nothing has been disturbed, but this doesn't reassure me. Whatever took me didn't need to use the doors. The bruises on my wrists faded after 10 days. Before they disappeared, I had them examined by a dermatologist. He said they appeared consistent with restraints, like someone had strapped my wrist down. But the pattern was unusual. 3 small, perfectly circular marks arranged in a straight line on each wrist, not consistent with any medical restraint he knew. He suggested I might have done it to myself while sleepwalking. I've started experiencing strange symptoms, sensitivity to light, headaches behind my left eye, nosebleeds that start without warning. And there's a smell that sometimes follows me, metallic and sharp, like copper pennies or blood, but with something else underneath. No one else seems to notice it. I've had tests. Everything comes back normal. The neurologist suggested stress-induced migraines. The psychiatrist prescribed anti-anxiety medication. Neither believed me when I said these symptoms started after that night. I've begun researching, trying to make sense of what happened. Eventually, desperation overcame my reluctance to type those words. Abduction, missing time, unexplained bruises, paralysis during sleep. The results were both disturbing and strangely comforting. Disturbing because I discovered that what happened to me has happened to others, thousands of others. Comforting for the same reason. I'm not alone. I'm not losing my mind. But the more I read, the more my skepticism fought with my growing certainty. So many accounts contain the same elements: the paralysis, the light, the sense of being lifted, the missing time, the unexplained marks. Could so many people be experiencing the same delusion? I joined an online support group. I didn't share at first, just read others' accounts, noting the similarities to my experience. So many described the same humming sound, the same blue light, the same sense of being watched beforehand. When I finally shared my story, the response was overwhelming. People who believed me without question because they'd lived through similar experiences. Many had lost jobs, relationships, their sense of security. Some had been dealing with these experiences for decades. That's when the memories started coming back. Not from November, those hours remain blank, but from earlier in my life, like the camping trip when I was 12. I wandered away from our campsite, following a strange light. My parents found me the next morning, asleep miles from our tent. I had no memory of how I'd gotten there, and 3 small bruises on my ankle, or the night during college when my roommate couldn't wake me despite shaking and slapping me. She said I was lying rigidly, eyes open but unresponsive, making a strange humming sound. When I finally woke up hours later, I had a nosebleed and no memory of anything unusual, or the time 7 years ago when I lost an entire weekend. I'd planned to grade papers, but when Monday came, nothing was done. I had a sunburn despite it being February, and my car had somehow driven an extra 347 miles. These memories keep surfacing, triggered by my research. Each one carries the same elements: missing time, unexplained physical effects, complete memory loss. Each one had been rationalized away, forgotten. But now I see the pattern. November wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the first time I'd been caught outside my own carefully constructed explanations. A member of the support group suggested I look for implants. I spent an hour examining every inch of my body. I found nothing obvious, but there's a small, hard lump behind my left ear that I don't remember noticing before. It could be anything, a cyst, a lymph node. But now I'm aware of it constantly. I scheduled an appointment to have it examined, but canceled. I'm afraid of what they might find. More afraid of what they might not find, of being looked at again with that mixture of pity and suspicion. Instead, I bought a notebook and started documenting everything: the headaches, the nosebleeds, the moments when the metallic smell becomes overwhelming. I'm looking for patterns, for triggers, for anything that might help me understand. And I've started sleeping in my car. Not every night, that would be too conspicuous. But 2 or 3 nights a week, I drive to different locations and sleep with the doors locked and a baseball bat nearby. Last week, I bought a video camera. I set it up in my bedroom, focused on my bed, recording the entire night. The first 6 recordings showed nothing unusual, just me sleeping restlessly. But last night's video disturbs me. Around 3:14 a.m., I become completely still. At 3:17, there's a power fluctuation. The image distorts, breaks up, then goes completely black for exactly 9 minutes. When the recording resumes, I'm still in bed, still unnaturally still. Nothing seems to have changed, except for one thing. Before the blackout, I'm sleeping on my back, arms at my sides. After, I'm in exactly the same position, but my pajama top is buttoned incorrectly, with the buttons misaligned by 1. I should be terrified. Part of me is. But another part feels an odd sense of validation. Something is happening. I'm not imagining it. And now I have proof, even if it's just a misaligned button. The camera doesn't lie. That's what we tell ourselves, isn't it? But after 3 weeks of recording myself sleeping, I'm not so sure anymore. The blackouts keep happening. Always at 3:17 a.m., always lasting exactly 9 minutes. And always, something is slightly different when the recording resumes. My hair parted on the opposite side, a birthmark on my shoulder that wasn't there before. My wedding ring moved from my left hand to my right. My wedding ring. I haven't worn one in 12 years, not since David died. I've been sleeping exclusively in my car now. Different locations every night, truck stops, hospital parking lots, even the school parking lot once, though I won't do that again. Too many questions if I'm discovered. I keep the cameras running, one inside the car focused on me, one outside capturing the surroundings. So far, no blackouts in the recordings, no missing minutes, no unexplained changes. Whatever is happening seems tied to my bedroom. I'm exhausted. Teaching has become mechanical. I deliver my lessons like an automaton, assign readings, collect papers, grade without really seeing the words. My students have noticed, my colleagues too. Last week, the school counselor pulled me aside to ask if everything was all right. I lied and said I was having trouble sleeping due to menopause. She seemed to accept that. Women my age become invisible in a way that's usually frustrating, but right now, it's a blessing. No one looks too closely at a middle-aged woman with insomnia. The support group has become my lifeline. We meet weekly via video call, a retired Marine from Texas, a pediatric nurse from Vancouver, an accountant from Ohio, a college student from Brazil, and me. All of us with similar experiences, similar marks, similar fears. We compare notes, share research, offer comfort when the doubts and terror become overwhelming. They're the only people who don't look at me with suspicion or pity when I describe what's happening. Martin, the Marine, suggested I check my house for radiation. He'd found unusual readings in his bedroom after his experiences. I ordered a Geiger counter online, waited impatiently for 3 days, then systematically tested every room in my house. Normal readings everywhere, except for a small area of ceiling directly above my bed. There the readings were almost twice the background level. Not dangerous according to the manual, but definitely unusual. I told myself there had to be a rational explanation. Radon gas, some quirk of the house's construction. But I kept coming back to that spot on the ceiling, the spot where I remembered being pulled through. Sarah, the nurse, has been documenting strange marks that appear on her body. She suggested I do the same. Now I photograph myself every morning, methodically checking for anything unusual. 3 days ago, I found it. A small, perfectly circular red mark at the base of my spine, like a tiny burn. It wasn't there when I went to sleep in my car. By evening, it had faded completely. The smell has become more frequent. That metallic, coppery scent that no one else seems to notice. It comes without warning, in the middle of class, while driving, once even during our support group call. When it happens, my headache intensifies, and I feel a strange pressure behind my eyes as though something is pushing outward from inside my skull. After one particularly intense episode, I found myself driving to a location I'd never been before, an abandoned quarry about 40 miles from town. I have no memory of deciding to go there, no reason to be there at all, but I arrived just as the sun was setting, parked at the edge overlooking the water-filled pit, and waited. For what? I don't know. After an hour, the pressure behind my eyes subsided, the metallic smell faded, and I drove home feeling disoriented and afraid. I've started carrying a small notebook with me everywhere, jotting down when these episodes occur, how long they last, any unusual circumstances. I'm looking for patterns, for triggers, anything that might help me predict when they'll happen. So far, the only consistency is that they're becoming more frequent and more intense. James, the accountant, believes we're being monitored, tracked somehow. He's convinced the small, hard lumps many of us have found, mine behind my left ear, his at the base of his skull, are some kind of tracking devices. He had his surgically removed by a doctor friend. It was small, metallic, and apparently like nothing the doctor had seen before. The doctor wanted to send it to a lab for analysis, but when he returned from getting a specimen container, the object had disappeared from the surgical tray. I'm not ready to take that step yet, but I've started covering the lump behind my ear with a small patch of aluminum foil secured with a Band-Aid. The others laughed when I mentioned it on our call. It sounds so stereotypically paranoid, but the pressure behind my eyes has lessened since I started doing it. Maybe it's just placebo effect. Maybe I'm grasping at straws. But right now, even a placebo feels like progress. Last night, I dreamt of a room, white, featureless, with a light so bright it hurt to look directly at it. I was lying on something firm, but not uncomfortable. I couldn't move, couldn't turn my head, could only stare upward at the blinding light. There were sounds, that familiar humming, but also something like voices, though not in any language I recognized. The dream was so vivid, so detailed, that when I woke up sweating and shaking in the back seat of my car, I was surprised to find myself alone. But was it a dream, or was it a memory surfacing from those missing hours, those blank spaces in my life? I decided to try something. I've been teaching my sophomore class about dream journals, how writers like Edgar Allan Poe use their dreams as inspiration. I assigned my students to keep dream journals for a week, recording everything they could remember upon waking. I decided to do the same, but with a specific focus. Before sleeping, I repeat to myself, I will remember. I will remember what happens at 3:17. 3 nights ago, it worked. Not completely. The memories are fragmentary, disjointed, but enough to convince me that what's happening is real. I remember the ceiling becoming insubstantial. I remember rising through it. I remember the cold, so intense it felt like burning. I remember voices not speaking, but somehow communicating directly into my mind. I remember eyes, not human eyes, not animal eyes, observing me with an intelligence that felt ancient and utterly alien. I woke up in my car, exactly where I'd parked it, but my clothes were on inside out, every single garment, even my socks. The cameras showed the same 9-minute blackout at 3:17 a.m. I should go to someone with this evidence. The videos, the radiation readings, the marks on my body. But who would believe me? The police already think I had some kind of breakdown in November. A doctor would likely prescribe psychiatric medication. The media would turn it into a circus. Besides, I'm afraid, not just of being disbelieved or ridiculed, but of what might happen if I draw too much attention to this, because I'm becoming increasingly certain that whatever is happening to me, whatever is taking me, doesn't want to be discovered. But I can't keep living like this, afraid to sleep in my own home, exhausted, isolated, questioning my sanity despite the mounting evidence that I'm not imagining this. Something is happening to me, something real, something that leaves physical traces, and I think it's getting ready to take me again, permanently this time. I found something in my attic yesterday. A box I don't remember putting there, filled with notebooks I don't remember writing. Dozens of them, dating back 30 years, all in my handwriting. Detailed accounts of experiences identical to what's been happening these past months. The same paralysis, the same blue light, the same sensation of passing through solid matter, the same missing time. The earliest entry is from when I was 18. They came again last night, it begins. The ceiling turned to mist and they pulled me through it. 30 years. This has been happening to me for 30 years. How is that possible? How could I have forgotten something so traumatic, so life-altering over and over again? The rational part of me, the English teacher who deals in facts and analysis, wants to deny it. These journals must be elaborate fakes. Someone is gaslighting me. Someone is trying to make me believe I'm experiencing something supernatural when there's a perfectly logical explanation. But I recognize the handwriting. I recognize the way I dot my I's, the slight slant to my letters. I recognize my own voice in these pages, my way of structuring thoughts, and I recognize things only I could know, private thoughts, secret fears, intimate details of my life that no one else would have access to. These journals are mine. These experiences are mine. And according to these pages, they've been happening since I was a teenager. I spent all night reading, trying to piece together what's been happening to me for most of my life. The journals describe the abductions occurring in cycles, intense periods of activity followed by months or years of nothing. Each time, the memories would fade within days of writing them down, leaving me to discover these journals anew with the next cycle, always shocked, always disbelieving. The most recent journal, before my current experiences ended 7 years ago. During that weekend, I lost and blamed on stress. According to those entries, something different happened that time. They, whoever or whatever they are, did something to my mind. Something that was supposed to make me forget permanently. They said it was the final procedure, I wrote. That they had everything they needed from me now. That they were erasing all memory of them. That I would be free to live a normal life. The entry ends there, mid-page, as though I stopped writing suddenly. The rest of that journal and several blank ones after it remain empty until now. Until this cycle began again in November. Why? Why would they return after telling me it was over? What changed? The journals offer no clear answers, but they do contain details I've been rediscovering on my own. The aluminum foil barrier that seems to block whatever signal connects us. The 3:17 a.m. timing that appears consistent across decades. The physical marks that follow the same patterns. There are crude drawings of the beings responsible, figures with disproportionately large heads and eyes, limbs too long and too thin to be human. In the earlier journals, I sound terrified, confused. In the middle years, determined to understand, to document, to find proof. In the later journals, resigned, accepting that this is simply part of my life, something I cannot control or escape. And now? Now I feel something I never expected, anger, not just at these beings, these intruders who have taken so much from me, but at myself, for forgetting, for allowing this cycle to continue, for not finding a way to break free. I called in sick to school today. I can't face my students, can't pretend everything is normal while carrying the weight of these discoveries. Instead, I've been preparing. Tonight is the night. I can feel it in the pressure behind my eyes, in the metallic taste that hasn't left my mouth since finding the journals. They're coming for me again. But this time, I'll be ready. I've set up 6 cameras throughout the house, high definition, battery powered, with enough storage to record for 24 hours continuously. I've positioned them to capture every angle of my bedroom, to eliminate any blind spots. I've backed up the video feeds to a cloud server that will upload in real time. If the footage disappears from the physical cameras, it will still exist online. I've written letters to each member of my support group, explaining what I've discovered, sharing the login credentials for the cloud server. If I disappear, not just for hours, but for good, they'll have access to whatever the cameras capture. I've swallowed a GPS tracking device, the kind people use to find lost pets. It's small, designed to pass through the digestive system harmlessly. But while it's inside me, it will broadcast my location every 3 minutes to an app on my phone, which will again upload that data to the cloud server. I've written a letter to the principal at school, one to my sister in Arizona, and one to the local police. I've sealed them with instructions that they only be opened if I go missing. I don't expect to be believed, but at least there will be a record. At least someone will know what I believed was happening to me. I've removed the aluminum foil from behind my ear. I want them to find me. I want them to come. Because this ends tonight, one way or another. This cycle of abduction and amnesia ends tonight. I'm sitting on my bed as I write this, waiting for 3:17 a.m. The cameras are recording. The GPS is transmitting. Outside, it's snowing. Big, lazy flakes drifting past my window and settling on the yard below. It looks peaceful, normal, the kind of night where nothing extraordinary should happen. But I know better. I can already feel the familiar pressure building behind my eyes. The metallic taste is stronger now. When I glance at the mirror across the room, I sometimes catch a glimpse of something standing behind me, something that disappears when I turn to look directly at it. They're already here, watching, waiting. My hand is shaking as I write these words, not from fear, though I'm afraid, but from anger and determination. 30 years they've been taking me. 30 years of missing time, of unexplained marks and bruises, of wondering if I'm losing my mind. 30 years of having pieces of myself stolen and then being made to forget the theft had even occurred. No more. I don't know what will happen when 3:17 arrives. I don't know if my preparations will make any difference. I don't know if anyone will ever read these words. But I know this. I am Eleanor Weaver. I am 48 years old. I teach English at Brookfield High School. I have been experiencing alien abductions for 30 years, and tonight I fight back. The clock reads 3:16. They're coming. Wait, something's happening. The light on the ceiling, it's starting to... If you've experienced something similar to my story, please share in the comments below. You're not alone in this. Don't forget to subscribe for more true encounters and hit the notification bell so you never miss my updates.